Hot Cheetos, the Matrix, and the internet. What do these three things have to do with fishing? Stay tuned to find out on the first episode of the Ask Roman Show. Welcome to the Ask Roman Show, the show where I answer your questions to help you on your fishing journey. If you're watching from the future, hello angler from the future. I'm going to put a playlist right here of this whole show so you can binge watch all the episodes if you so desire. Before we get started, I want to elaborate a little bit more on the premise of the show. This show is designed for me to help you learn to fish and also for me to share what I've been learning and the techniques that have been working for me. Pretty much all questions are fair game, but let's try to keep them fishing, kayak fishing related, also YouTube related. If you have a fishing channel and you have questions about what I'm doing or how I'm doing things, feel free to ask those questions too, because I think those will be helpful. And any fishing questions, any kayak fishing questions, those are all perfect for this show. As you watch this show, do me a favor and leave a comment with the timestamp to the section of the video that resonated with you the most. I'm trying to figure out what you guys really want to see, what's the best parts of this episode, and also we're going to be doing that with a future episode. Alright, here we go. Let's get into these questions. We're going to do 3-question episodes, and the first 2 questions are going to be from the comments, and the third question is going to be a video question. Stay tuned till the end of the video, and I'm going to tell you exactly how you could be featured on the next episode of the Ask Roman Show. Here we go. Question 1 is from Josh Alberto. Josh, I know you always watch my videos. Dude, thank you for watching my videos. I totally noticed that, and I appreciate it, and it inspires me to keep making videos, so thank you. Josh asks, what got you into fishing? That's a great question to start this whole show off with. But I'm going to try to keep it short. Here we go. Let's see if I can do it in less than 2 minutes. When I was a kid, I would fish with my dad, and I have like vague memories of fishing with him when I was young. So since then, like, I hadn't fished for years, and then we moved to San Diego in 2008. 2009, my dad came to visit me, and I wanted us to do something fun, so I went to Turner's and I bought like some really cheap bait setups. I knew I wanted to get Shimano stuff. So I bought 2 little Shimano 2-piece rods and 2 identical Solstice 2500 Shimano reels, and those are the combos I used even to this day on the kayak, just when I do finesse fishing. So I want to say my dad got me into it kind of indirectly, because after I fished with him a couple of times in the bay, I kind of like got the bug a little bit, not full on, and started looking up videos on how to do it, and I did it, and it was fun. But then I discovered spearfishing, and I really got into spearfishing, and hook and line fishing was like set aside. So then down the road, about 4 or 5 years ago, while we're out there spearfishing for Dorado and Yellowtail, my friend Matt, before a trip, suggested that I pick up a combo for Yellowtail, like a 30-pound setup. So I picked up a secret 30-pound rated fishing rod with a Daiwa Saltis, I think it was like 30 reel, and used that to catch fish off patties before I would jump in with the spear gun. So that was my introduction to more serious fishing. So catching fish off patties was like a big rush, and that's kind of how I caught my first bluefin tuna, my first yellowfin tuna. It was back in the day when they were still smaller, because now we have like big over 100-pound fish, but the ones I caught was like a 30-pounder and like a 40-pounder. From there, I kind of started exploring more hook and line fishing because I wasn't doing as much diving. I decided to stop diving by myself and only dive with diving partners I felt comfortable with, and it would dive a certain way. So that ended up limiting the amount of time I could go actually spearfish, and then I still felt that urge to be on the water, to be in the water, to be around the water, and so kayak fishing and fishing was like the answer to that. When I couldn't find a dive partner and I wanted to go out and be out in nature and on the water or near the water, just holding fish, then I would go fishing. And then I was like, well, I have a kayak, let's just try this kayak fishing thing. That was when I decided I actually wanted to do this, and I wanted to actively improve and work on my skill set. So I guess we could say that I got into fishing about 2 years ago. Question number 2 comes from Brian Pfeiffer. Brian asks, I never seem to do well when I'm not near structure, rocks, docks, etc. When in open water in the bay, not in the harbor, are you using a fish finder? Okay, so this is a great question, and I kind of want to talk about this topic a little bit, and this is a great segue into it. So, no, I do not use a fish finder. That's the simple answer. Fish finder is a kind of a weird name for that device. It's actually like a sonar, right? It doesn't find the fish for you. It just tells you what's underneath your boat or kayak at the time. And with the fancier ones, it tells you what's around in 3D structure, and that might be more of a fish finder. But it's really just like a way of imaging the structure underneath you. Only help you find structure that's underwater that you can't see from the surface. So even though all the water looks flat, underneath you're gonna have different things. For example, even a drop of about a foot, right, compared to how deep, relative to how deep that section of water is, could hold a fish, right? Even if it's going a transition from sand to eelgrass, that transition can hold a fish, right? Because the fish could be sitting on the eelgrass, looking out, waiting for something to pounce on, right? So don't give too much credit for the sounder, and at least not for shallow water fishing. It will help you find some structure, some little differences, and what you should be looking for is actually transitions. So where the sand meets the rocks, where the sand meets the eelgrass, where the eelgrass meets the rocks, right? Or that'll be one kind of transition. Another kind of transition would be where the water is moving slow and it comes to a section where it's moving fast, right? So that's another transition. That's the current transition, right? The fish that we're fishing for are stronger swimmers than the bait fish that they're chasing. So for them, it's easier to corner and outmaneuver a weaker fish in current, right? So that's why we look for current. And for example, if you look at if you can learn to tell what the current is doing when it hits a certain piece of structure, or even in the middle of the channel, if you see a particular way the current is going, then you have a better shot of catching a fish in that zone, right? Because that's where the fish would be actively feeding and waiting to ambush a little piece of bait that swims by, right? So I know your question is about sounders, but like I wanted to make the point that just having the sounder is not going to help you catch fish. It's one small part of the bigger puzzle, right? So I don't use a sounder, and the reason I'm doing that is like I want to focus on other aspects of fishing before I start to use a sounder again. I'll probably get and start using a fish finder on my kayak once I decide to go fish La Jolla or fish deeper structure. Then I will see how it could be even more helpful. But like in the bay, you don't really need a fish finder or a sounder. I mean, if you want to check how deep it is, you can kind of time it by how fast your lure sinks. And if you want to see what kind of structures on the bottom, you can just cast. And if you're getting snagged up a lot, then you know it's grass. If you're getting little bumps, you know you're on rocks. If it's just smooth, then you know you're on sand. And that's gonna help you to kind of learn where the fish are biting. Because for example, you could be floating over a section of rocks, or floating over a section of eelgrass, and you cast, and when your lure lands, it's actually landing in open sand bottom, right? And then your sounder is telling you you're over grass, but you're feeling it like it's smooth. So at that point, your sounder is kind of confusing you, right? Because you're not gonna learn. You're gonna think that you were fishing over grass, which your kayak is over grass, but your lure landed on sand. Sorry. So that's like so I want to focus on what my lure is doing, not where I am at, right? So unless you're jigging straight down and trying to catch some fish on structure, again, that would be like on a deeper. That'd be like fishing deep structure. That's why I would consider using a sounder. If I were you, I wouldn't focus so much on what sounder to get, because that's not really going to help you too much. If anything, it's going to distract you from the actual learning, and it'll set you back a little bit as far as money goes and as far as progress. So yeah. So thanks for your question, Brian. Cool. So before we jump into the video question, hit that like button if you're enjoying the show so far. Thank you. Let's get on with this and let's hear the video question.
Hi guys, this is Kerry Peeler. Since you have started fishing, which hasn't been very long, what do you feel is the most important thing that you could share with other new anglers that has helped you to learn how to fish a little bit better and also to catch more fish? Thank you, and bye.
Thank you for submitting a video question, Kerry. That is a great question, and we're going to get into it right now. So the thing that was most important for me while learning to fish in this short amount of time, I cannot do a single thing. I'm going to say it's a combination of a few things, but I'm going to narrow it down to my top 3. This is the top 3 things that helped me kind of progress from beginner to where I'm at now. I would say I am a intermediate fisherman, okay? The first one is to approach fishing with an open mind. And I'm not going to leave you at that. I'm going to tell you exactly what I mean by that. You have to approach every fishing session like its own little puzzle. And what's happened in the past doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to happen on this session, right? So you have to be aware of when you catch a fish, and then be aware of the conditions that led to catching that fish. So it's not just about going to a certain spot. That's what I get, or like fishing a certain lure or a certain bait or a certain reel combo, or fishing the latest trick bait that's out there, or fishing all those things do play a role in it, but it's all a combination of different things that come together to you actually catching a fish, right? So and that's where it gets kind of overwhelming as a beginner. You have to basically learn one little piece at a time. And the easiest thing to learn at first is always going to be like, oh, what lures to use and where to go fish, right? So once you get past the two basics, then you have to get a little bit deeper into it and learn how the conditions affect the fish's behavior. You have to learn about the actual fish you're targeting, and I recommend targeting one fish or one specific type of fish, and then learning that fish's behaviors and what kind of conditions it likes to be in. When does it eat? What environment it likes to be in? Does it live on sand? Does it live mid-water column? Does it live on the surface? Does it live in eelgrass? Does it live in the rocks? So each fish has its own preferences for temperature, when it eats. Is its eating pattern based on tides? Is it based on current? Is it based on daytime, nighttime? Is it based on moon phase? Like back in the day before the internet, if you wanted to become a good angler, you would have to go out there and actually put in a ton of time to go and figure everything out on your own, or with the help of a buddy that had more experience than you. But nowadays it's a little bit easier, and there's a lot of resources available to us. That's going to take me to my second piece of advice for how to get from beginner to like at least intermediate. It would be to matrix yourself. You're basically filling up your brain with all of the knowledge that you need, kind of like in that scene on The Matrix. We don't have the input to connect ourselves to a computer, but we do have our natural input interfaces, and those are our eyes and our ears. So we can, and touch too, but it's kind of hard to learn. I know you are learning from touch, but let's just stick with eyes and ears, okay? So we can see, we can read, we can watch the videos, we can listen to podcasts, we can listen to radio shows about fishing and up our knowledge. There's also magazines, podcasts, forums, etc. You know what I mean? Basically, there's tons of free content. It's for you to matrix yourself and get that nice database of information in your brain. So when you're actually fishing, you have things to try, you can understand what's happening more, and you can eventually come up with your own insights based on all that accumulated knowledge in your brain. After you've read a bunch of books, seen a bunch of videos, gone and fished, and try experiencing what you're watching and learning about, then come back to those same resources and do it again. Watch them again, listen to them again, and you'll find new things that you didn't pick up on the first time because now you have more experience, right? And if you get to the point where you know every single part of that piece of content, then find more content to learn from and to get new ideas on what things to try on your next session. This is getting so long, but let's go to the third one. The third thing that helped me go from beginner to intermediate would be to fish with as many other anglers as you can. And don't try to fish only with people that are better at it than you. Also fish with people that are new to it and that are starting out, or maybe not as good as you, because in the process of you guys fishing together, you might pick up something that you didn't even know about, that maybe even a real old school seasoned guy doesn't know about yet, right? New guys that are learning like you are more likely to be open-minded enough to try new lures and new fishing techniques that the old school guy just kind of set aside. He doesn't want to hear about it. And you'll be getting introduced to new things. Plus, while you're fishing with a newer person, you can also help them by teaching them some of your techniques or by giving them some advice. Of course, when you fish with somebody that's more experienced than you and they're willing to take you under the wing, take advantage of it as much as possible. Be grateful that they're taking their time to teach you something, and listen. Don't talk so much. Just listen to what they're saying, and watch what they're doing. If you have a question about what they're doing, like maybe you don't realize you see that they're doing something different, but you can't really figure it out why they're doing it that way, then just go ahead and ask them. They're gonna have a good time explaining to you what why they're doing it that way, because maybe it's something they came up with, or maybe it's something to learn from a friend. And then that's how it kind of goes. It's kind of like, it's just having conversations, right? It's just being a human being. That's kind of one of my favorite parts of fishing, is the fishing with other people, because it's like, I like to have a good time. I like to laugh and kid around when I'm on the water, and we're lucky to be able to fish. So enjoy spending that time with like-minded people that also love to catch fish. I know I said I was going to tell you 3 things that help me get from beginner to intermediate, but I'm going to give you 2 bonus things. These are more actionable. These are actually things that I actually noticed and started working on consciously to actually do while I was fishing. The first one is the most overlooked piece of advice that we use in the fishing community, and you probably used it hundreds of times, and that is tight lines. We usually use it as a way to say goodbye, even like we say, all right, tight lines, good luck, right? The kind of that sentiment. But if you stop and look at the actual phrase, it means you want to have tension on that line while you're fishing, so you can feel the bite, right? If your lure is out there and you have a bunch of slack on the line, you're not going to feel the fish unless it already ate your bait, hooked itself, and it's trying to get away from you. That's when you'll feel a tug, and that's like kind of a lucky strike, right? That's kind of like a lucky bite. It's not you actually feeling the bite and then setting the hook. So you want to have a tight line, because a tight line lets you keep that contact with your lure. And if your lure's on the bottom, you kind of reel it in slowly or dragging it on the floor, and you can feel that lure is going to tell you, like kind of like a blind person reads Braille with his fingers. You have to kind of take that idea and make the lure your Braille, right? You're using your lure kind of as an extended finger to read the structure under the water, right? And that's kind of why I don't use a sounder right now, because I want to get better at that. Your lure and keeping that line tight is what's gonna allow you to feel all the little bumps or the smoothness or the rough or like the snaggy stuff underwater, and that's going to be a good indicator of the structure, right? And once you get good at that, it's like reading Braille. That's like anyway, it's like reading Braille. So and of course the most important reason for having a tight line is when a fish actually picks up your bait and puts it in their mouth, you're going to feel something different, and then you're going to try to set the hook and try to hook that fish, and it becomes more of a pressure bite than a tug. I'm already hooked for you, just reel me up, right? So that's a big one. And the second bonus tip is stop reeling. Basically. So and I say stop reeling because if I say reel slow, you're gonna reel fast. So I say stop reeling, and then you might reel slow. But my goal is to get you to reel slow and to have some pauses in there. I think it's just a new guy mistake that when you start, you feel like you gotta do something to be fishing. I felt like I always had to be winding in the line. So I learned to slow down, and I learned to let the bait sit there every once in a while and just don't give it any action, because maybe that's what's gonna get you bit. There's actually a video of me fishing with Glenn from OC Sup Fishing where this became blatantly clear. We were drifting on a skiff, and I had a little streak of 3 casts where I caught 3 spotted bay bass back to back, and all while eating Cheetos. So it's kind of a funny video, but it does drive the point home that sometimes just letting the drift drag you and keeping that line tight to feel the bite is what's going to get you bit. If you want to watch that video, I'll put a YouTube card for it up here. Do you have a question for me? If you do, drop it in the comments and you might be the next person on the Ask Roman show. To submit a video question, hit me up on Instagram. I am @RomanCastro, and I'll send you instructions on how to get that video to me. If you're reading through the questions in the comments of this video and you see someone you can help, feel free to jump in and give them some advice. I have no problem with that, and I actually appreciate the help. It's going to make us a stronger community. Okay, share this video. I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Woo!